Commander Emily Roberts couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She stood at her usual spot on Earth's Defense Station Alpha, her eyes fixed on the large display screen showing the status of humanity's outer colonies. The coffee in her hand had gone cold hours ago, forgotten as she studied the strange readings from the border sensors. "Commander, we're picking up unusual energy signatures near New Eden Colony," said Officer Steve Baker, his voice steady but tense. "They don't match any known human or allied vessels." Emily placed her coffee cup down and walked closer to his station. The readings were unlike anything she'd seen in her 15 years of service. Multiple objects, massive in size, were dropping out of faster-than-light travel near humanity's most distant colony. "Get me a visual," she ordered, her hand unconsciously touching the silver pendant her daughter had given her for luck. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they could see them, sleek, purple-black ships that seemed to absorb the starlight around them. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. "Sir, incoming transmission from the unknown fleet," called out Communications Officer Jenny Mills. "Playing it now." A deep, resonating voice filled the command center. "This is High Commander Zaxel of the Zaxian Empire. Your species has expanded far enough. You will submit to our authority or face extinction. You have 1 hour to respond." The room fell silent. Emily's mind raced through everything she knew about the galaxy's species. The Zaxians were ancient, proud, and hadn't fought a war in 10,000 years. They viewed younger species as children to be guided or controlled. "Send an alert to all colonies," Emily commanded. "Begin immediate evacuation of New Eden, and get me Earth Command." But before anyone could act, the massive screen lit up with countless new energy signatures. The Zaxian ships had launched their weapons. They had never intended to wait for a response. "They're firing on the colony," Steve shouted. "Multiple impacts detected." Emily watched in horror as New Eden's defensive shields flickered and failed under the assault. The colony's buildings, farms, and infrastructure, everything built over 20 years of human determination and hard work, began to crumble. Emergency beacons flashed across the screen as civilian ships desperately tried to escape. "Get me casualty numbers," Emily ordered, her voice tight with controlled rage. "Initial estimates: 300,000 civilians, Commander," Jenny reported, her voice breaking. The Zaxians targeted the escape pods first. Emily's fingers curled into fists. In her mind, she could see the families, the children, the everyday people who had built their lives on New Eden. People who had done nothing to deserve this. Her daughter's pendant felt heavy against her chest. "Send this message to Earth Command," Emily said, her voice carrying across the now silent command center. "Zaxian Empire has attacked New Eden Colony without provocation. Estimated 300,000 casualties. They expect us to submit." She paused, then added, "Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol Omega-7. Protocol Omega-7, the full mobilization of every ship, every soldier, and every resource humanity had. It had never been used before." The response from Earth Command came just minutes later. "Protocol Omega-7 authorized. All military personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill." Emily turned to face her crew, seeing the same mix of shock, grief, and determination on every face. "The Zaxians think we're children," she said, her voice carrying across the command center. "They think we'll bend at the first show of force. They don't understand what humanity does when backed into a corner." She walked to the central command console and began entering commands. Around the station, alert klaxons began to sound. "They just killed 300,000 civilians to make a point. Now we're going to teach them about humanity's capacity for justice." As battle stations throughout the solar system came alive with activity, Emily sent one final message to Earth Command. "The enemy has made their choice. Humanity will respond in kind." Across the vastness of space, the Zaxian ships moved on to their next target, confident in their superiority. They didn't realize that their actions had just awakened something far more dangerous than they could imagine. humanity's unified wrath. The galaxy was about to learn why you don't sacrifice innocent human lives to make a point. The war had begun, and humanity would make sure the Zaxians regretted their choice until the end of time itself. John Cooper hadn't slept in 3 days. Empty coffee cups littered his lab in the lunar research facility, and his eyes were red from staring at test results. But he couldn't stop. Not while the Zaxians were still out there, still killing humans. Dr. Cooper, his assistant Amy Wells, called from across the lab. "You need to see this." Her voice had that special tone, the one that meant something important had happened. John walked over to her station, nearly tripping over a stack of data tablets. On her screen, a simulation was running, showing a Zaxian shield failing under a very specific type of energy pulse. "Run it again," he said, suddenly wide awake. They watched as the simulation played out 5 more times. Each time, the same result. The supposedly unbreakable Zaxian shields collapsed when hit with a precise frequency of energy waves. "It's their own technology working against them," Amy explained, pointing to the data. "Their shields work by absorbing energy, but they can't handle their own energy being turned back at them. It's like forcing them to punch themselves." John grabbed his tablet and started typing rapidly. "Get Admiral Wilson on the line. Now." 20 minutes later, Admiral David Wilson's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but determined. "This better be good, Cooper. We just lost contact with another colony." "Sir, we found their weakness," John said, sending the data. "Their shields have a fatal flaw. We can break them." The Admiral's eyes widened as he looked at the information. "Are you absolutely certain?" "We've run the simulations hundreds of times," John replied. "We can modify our ship's weapons to emit the right frequency. Their shields won't just fail, they'll collapse completely." Admiral Wilson was quiet for a moment. Then a small smile appeared on his face. "How long to retrofit our fleet?" "A week, maybe less. We've already started designing the modifications." Just then, another face appeared on the screen. A tall, blue-skinned alien with elaborate robes. "Admiral Wilson, I am Council Member Zexalar of the Galactic Council. We wish to negotiate peace between humanity and the Zaxian Empire." John watched as Admiral Wilson's smile disappeared, replaced by a cold expression. "Negotiate? Where was the Council when they killed our people? When they targeted civilian escape pods?" "The situation is complex," Zexalar said smoothly. "The Zaxians are an ancient and respected species. Surely we can find a peaceful—" "No," Admiral Wilson cut him off. "You stood by and watched them kill our people. Now you can stand by and watch what happens next." He turned back to John. "Dr. Cooper, begin the modifications. Priority 1. The alien's face showed shock. "Admiral, please reconsider. The Zaxians have never lost a war. Their technology is far superior." "That's where you're wrong," John interrupted, unable to stay quiet. "We just found a way through their shields, and we're going to use it." Zexalar's face paled to a lighter blue. "You? What?" "You'll see soon enough," Admiral Wilson said. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we have work to do." He cut off the transmission. Over the next 5 days, the lunar research facility worked nonstop. Ships arrived in waves to receive the modifications. John watched from his lab window as each vessel departed, now armed with the power to punch through the enemy's strongest defense. "Dr. Cooper," Amy called out on the 5th day. "The last ship has been modified. The fleet is ready." John nodded, looking at the latest casualty reports from the outer colonies. The Zaxians had killed over 1 million humans now, thinking their superior technology made them invincible. They thought humanity would break, would submit to their rule. Instead, humanity had done what it did best, found a way to fight back. Admiral Wilson's voice came over the general communication channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Wilson. The enemy thought their technology made them gods. Dr. Cooper and his team just proved them wrong. Today, we show them what humanity does to false gods. All vessels, move to attack positions. Operation Righteous Fury begins in 1 hour. John looked out at the Earth hanging in space, beautiful and blue. The Zaxians had wanted to teach humanity a lesson about power. Now humanity would teach them one about underestimating their prey. The real war was about to begin. Colonel Mary Patterson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, watching the battle unfold near Proxima Centauri. Dozens of human ships faced off against the larger Zaxian fleet. The enemy vessels glowed with their purple-black energy, confident in their superior numbers. "All ships reporting ready, Colonel," said Lieutenant Frank Miller from his station. "Dr. Cooper's shield breaker modifications are powered up and ready." Mary nodded, her gray eyes fixed on the enemy fleet. She had lost her brother on New Eden Colony. Now, after weeks of running and hiding, it was time to hit back. "Send to all ships," she ordered. "Remember New Eden. Remember our dead. Today we show them what happens when you push humanity too far." The Zaxian commander's voice boomed across all channels. "Foolish humans, you dare to challenge us here. Your primitive ships are no match for our technology. Surrender now." Mary smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Send our response," she said. "Just 3 words. Come and see." The Zaxian ships moved forward, their weapons charging. They expected the humans to retreat, to run away like they had been doing since the war started. But not today. "All ships, execute Pattern Delta," Mary commanded. "Activate shield breakers on my mark." The human fleet split into 3 groups, moving with precision that surprised the Zaxians. They had expected chaos. Instead, they got careful planned movements. "Enemy ships firing," called out Miller. "Now," Mary ordered. "All ships, activate shield breakers and return fire." The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams. But this time, something was different. Where the human weapons hit, the famous Zaxian shields flickered and died. Purple-black energy crashed into human ships too, but their shields held. "Direct hit on enemy vessels," Miller reported, excitement in his voice. "Their shields are down. It works." The Zaxian fleet's neat formation broke apart as ship after ship lost their supposedly unbeatable protection. Their commander's voice came again, but this time it held confusion and fear. What is this? How are you doing this?" Mary leaned forward in her chair. "All ships, form up on me. Prepare for the Patterson maneuver." Her crew looked at her with wide eyes. The Patterson maneuver was something she had developed but never tested in real battle. It was considered too dangerous, too crazy. "Colonel," Miller said quietly, "that maneuver, we've never. The enemy expects us to fight like civilized beings," Mary cut in. "They expect rules and proper tactics. Instead, we're going to show them how humans fight when pushed into a corner." She opened a channel to all ships. "This is Colonel Patterson. On my mark, all ships will execute a full burn directly at the enemy flagship. They think we're predictable. Let's prove them wrong." The Zaxian ships were regrouping, trying to protect their flagship, a massive vessel 3 times the size of any human ship. They didn't believe humans would dare to attack it directly. "All ships, mark." Every human vessel fired up their engines at full power, racing straight toward the enemy flagship like bullets. The Zaxians, confused by this seemingly suicidal move, hesitated. That hesitation cost them everything. "Shield breakers at full power," Mary shouted. "All weapons, target that flagship." The human fleet slammed through the Zaxian formation, their weapons tearing through the now vulnerable ships. Mary's ship shook violently as they passed so close to enemy vessels that they could see Zaxian crew members through their windows. The flagship's shields fell just as the human fleet reached it. Mary's ship led the charge, its weapons finding vital spots on the massive vessel. "Impact in 5 seconds," Miller called out. 4, 3. "For New Eden," Mary whispered, gripping her chair. The human fleet shot past the flagship just as its reactor went critical. The massive ship exploded in a burst of purple-black energy, taking out several nearby Zaxian vessels. When the light faded, the remaining Zaxian ships were retreating, leaving their burning flagship behind. For the first time since the war began, the mighty Zaxian Empire had lost a battle. "Damage report?" Mary asked, straightening in her chair. "Minor damage to all ships," Miller reported, grinning. "But we're all still here. The Patterson maneuver worked." Mary looked at the retreating enemy fleet. "Send word to Earth Command. Tell them the shield breakers work perfectly, and the Zaxians can bleed just like anyone else." The Battle of Proxima Centauri was over. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity didn't just fight wars. They won them. Officer Brian Murphy crouched in the shadows of the Zaxian capital city, watching purple-skinned aliens walk past without noticing him. His stealth suit, designed to bend light around him, worked perfectly against their security systems. 5 other human operatives were spread across the massive city, all waiting for his signal. "Team check," he whispered into his comm unit, so quiet that even someone standing next to him wouldn't hear it. "Alpha ready." That was Sarah Kelly, physician near the main power plant. "Beta ready." Jack Wilson, at the Weather Control Center. "Gamma ready." Maria Rodriguez, outside the Military Command Center. "Delta ready." Paul Chen, near the Civilian Broadcasting Station. "Epsilon ready." Linda Foster, at the Backup Communications Hub. 6 humans against the capital city of the most advanced empire in the galaxy. The Zaxians would have laughed if they knew. But they didn't know, and that was the point. Brian checked his wrist display. The city's security grid showed up as a complex web of purple lines. Dr. Cooper's team had cracked their systems 2 weeks ago, giving them complete access. The Zaxians still hadn't realized their unbreakable security codes were broken. "Remember," Brian said softly, "we're here to shut down their communications. No killing unless absolutely necessary. These civilians don't deserve to die just because their leaders are stupid." He got 5 clicks in response. His team understood. They weren't here for revenge. That's what the fleet was for. They were here to blind the Empire. Brian moved through the streets like a ghost. The Zaxians, tall and proud, never looked down at the shadows where he hid. Why would they? No one had ever successfully infiltrated their homeworld. He reached the main communications hub, a tall building shaped like a spiral. Getting inside was easy with the stolen codes. The Zaxians trusted their technology too much. "All teams, begin Phase 1, he ordered. Across the city, his team started uploading viruses into different systems. The viruses wouldn't destroy anything. They would just make things stop working in ways that would take weeks to fix. Brian reached the main control room and plugged a small device into their computer. On his wrist display, a progress bar appeared. 30 seconds until the virus would upload. A door opened. A young Zaxian technician walked in, checking something on her tablet. She walked right past Brian, then stopped. Slowly, she turned around, her eyes narrowing. "The air, it's moving strangely," she said in her own language. Brian's translator made him understand. She was reaching for an alarm button. Brian had to make a choice, kill her or risk the mission. Instead, he did something else. He turned off his stealth suit and stepped into view. The Zaxian's eyes went wide. "Hello," he said calmly. "Please don't push that button. I don't want to hurt you." She stared at him, frozen in shock. "Human," she whispered. "Yes, and I'm leaving in about." He checked his display. 10 seconds. "You can raise the alarm then. But right now, please just wait." The Zaxian looked at him, then at the alarm, then back at him. "Why aren't you killing me?" she asked. "Because this isn't about killing," Brian said. "This is about teaching a lesson." The progress bar hit 100%. Brian's suit flickered back on. "Goodbye," he said, and vanished. The Zaxian stood there, still staring at where he had been. She waited 30 seconds before hitting the alarm. By then, it was too late. All across the city, systems started failing. Communications went down. Backup systems failed to start. Emergency channels stayed silent. Brian met his team at the extraction point, a quiet park on the city's edge. All 6 humans were safe, their missions complete. "Did anyone have trouble?" he asked. "No," Sarah said. "But I had to hide from a family with kids. Reminded me why we're doing this the right way." Their extraction ship, cloaked with the same technology as their suits, landed silently. As they boarded, alarms finally started ringing across the city. "Mission Control, this is Silent Team," Brian reported once they were safely in space. "Phase 1 complete. The Zaxian Empire is now deaf and blind. The fleet can begin Phase 2. He looked back at the Zaxian homeworld through the ship's window. In 12 hours, the human fleet would arrive, led by Colonel Patterson. The Empire would never see them coming. "You know," Jack said, "they'll write this in history books someday. How 6 humans snuck onto the most defended planet in the galaxy and shut it down without killing anyone." Brian smiled. "That's the point. We're teaching them that humanity isn't just stronger than they thought. We're better than they thought." As their ship jumped to light speed, the Zaxian Empire fell into chaos, their mighty technology failing around them. They were about to learn another lesson about humanity. Sometimes the deadliest weapon isn't the one that kills you, but the one that lets you live to see your mistakes. Lieutenant Lisa Hayes stood in Earth Command's main hall, looking at the message floating on the giant screen. The Zaxian Emperor himself was asking for mercy. 3 months ago, she would have felt triumph. Now she just felt tired. The message played again. "To the leaders of humanity, we request an immediate ceasefire. We acknowledge our error in judgment. Please respond." General Roberts turned to her. "Lieutenant Hayes, as the highest-ranking survivor of New Eden Colony, you have been chosen to deliver our response." Lisa nodded slowly. She remembered the colony's last moments. Her parents, her little sister Emma, all gone in the first wave of attacks. The Zaxians hadn't shown mercy then. "Put me on screen," she said quietly. The Emperor's face appeared, purple-skinned, with elaborate gold markings showing his rank. He looked afraid. "Good. I am Lieutenant Lisa Hayes," she said, her voice steady. "I lived on New Eden Colony. I watched your ships target our escape pods. I saw families trying to run while your weapons turned them to ash. And now you want mercy." The Emperor shifted uncomfortably. We didn't understand humans then. We thought you would submit like others had. We were wrong." "Yes, you were." Lisa's eyes were cold. "Mercy was available 3 months ago. You chose this path. Now you will walk it to the end." "Please," the Emperor said, his voice shaking. "Your fleets have already taken 12 of our core worlds. Our communications are in chaos. Our shields fail against your weapons. What more do you want?" Lisa leaned forward. "We want justice, not revenge. Justice. Every family you killed, every colony you destroyed, will be paid for. Not with civilian lives. We're not like you, but your empire will fall." Reports were coming in even as she spoke. Colonel Patterson's fleet had just taken another Zaxian world. Brian Murphy's covert teams had disabled defense systems on 3 more. The mighty empire was falling piece by piece. "The terms are simple," Lisa continued. "Unconditional surrender. All military forces stand down. All conquered species freed. All territory gained in the last 1,000 years returned." "That would destroy us," the Emperor protested. "We would lose everything. Like how my people lost everything." Lisa asked quietly. "The difference is, your people will live. That's more mercy than you showed us." A signal flashed on her screen. Another Zaxian world had just surrendered. Their fleet there had laid down arms without a fight. They were learning. "You have 1 hour to decide," Lisa said. "Either surrender completely, or we continue our advance." "And Emperor?" She paused, making sure he was listening. "We haven't even used our full fleet yet. This was just our first wave. The Emperor's face paled to a lighter purple. He knew she wasn't bluffing. Human ships had proven they could break any defense, slip past any security, and strike at any target. 1 hour, Lisa repeated, and cut the transmission. General Roberts stepped forward. "Well said, Lieutenant. Your family would be proud." Lisa touched the necklace she wore. It had been Emma's. "I don't want them to be proud," she said softly. "I want them to be alive." Status update. Called out an officer. 3 more Zaxian worlds are requesting surrender terms. Their local governors aren't waiting for the Emperor's decision. The mighty empire was crumbling. Not from brutal force or mass destruction, but from precise, calculated strikes that left them no choice but to face their mistakes. "Lieutenant," another officer called out. "Message from the Galactic Council. They're offering to mediate the surrender." Lisa almost laughed. "Tell them what we told them before. They had their chance to stop this. Now they can watch and learn." The next 50 minutes passed with more reports of surrenders. The Zaxians were finally understanding what humanity had become. Not just warriors, but justice bringers. Not destroyers, but reformers. When the Emperor's face appeared again on screen, Lisa already knew his answer. He swallowed hard. "We accept your terms. The Zaxian Empire surrenders unconditionally." Lisa nodded. "Then let the galaxy remember this day. Not as the day humanity took revenge, but as the day we taught the oldest empire that age doesn't equal wisdom, and power doesn't equal right." As celebrations broke out across Earth Command, Lisa stayed quiet, touching her sister's necklace. The war was ending not with humanity's destruction, as the Zaxians had planned, but with their complete transformation of galactic society. The oldest empire had fallen to the youngest species, and the galaxy would never be the same. General Robert Hayes watched from the bridge of the UES Victory as human ships surrounded the last 5 Zaxian core worlds. Even though the Emperor had surrendered, some Zaxian military leaders refused to give up. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. "Sir," called out Captain Susan White, "the Zaxian defense fleet is forming up. They're not standing down." Robert nodded. He had expected this. The oldest military leaders of the Zaxian Empire couldn't accept being defeated by primitive humans. Their pride wouldn't let them surrender. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Let's try one last time to avoid unnecessary deaths." The face of High Admiral Zex Thor appeared on screen, his purple skin dark with anger. "We will not bow to lesser beings," he declared. "The Emperor is weak. We are the true strength of the Empire." Robert sighed. He was tired of this pride, this stubbornness that caused so many deaths. "High Admiral, look around you. Your shields don't work against our weapons. Your communications are down. Your supply lines are cut. Don't throw away more lives for your pride. We have 10,000 years of military history." Zex Thor shouted. "We will not surrender to creatures who barely learned to fly a century ago." "Very well." Robert turned to his crew. "All ships, battle formations. Minimal force only. Disable, don't destroy. Show them what a century of human innovation can do." The human fleet moved with perfect precision. They had learned much in the past months of war. The Zaxian ships, still beautiful and deadly-looking, formed up in traditional battle lines. "They're using textbook formations," Susan reported. "The same ones they've used for thousands of years. And that's why they'll lose," Robert said quietly. "They never learned to adapt." The battle began. The Zaxian ships fired their powerful weapons, but human shields, improved by studying Zaxian technology, held firm. Human ships darted between the rigid Zaxian formations, their modified weapons cutting through enemy shields like they weren't there. "Sir," Susan called out, 3 Zaxian cruisers are powering down. They're surrendering." Robert watched as more Zaxian ships began to lower their shields. The younger officers were choosing survival over pride. Only High Admiral Zex Thor's flagship and a few loyal ships continued to fight. "Status report," Robert ordered. No human casualties, Susan replied. Minimal damage to our ships. 40% of enemy fleet has surrendered. The rest are disabled except for the flagship. Zexthor's face appeared again on screen. How? He demanded. How can you do this? Our technology is superior. No, Robert corrected him. Your technology is older. We learned from everything you threw at us. We adapted. We improved. While you relied on the same tactics for thousands of years, we created new ones every day. As if to prove his point, a small group of human ships executed a perfect Patterson maneuver, sliding past the flagship's defenses and disabling its engines. Final warning, High Admiral, Robert said firmly. Surrender now, or we will be forced to board your vessel. Choose wisely. The bridge was quiet as they waited. Finally, Zexthor's shoulders slumped. We surrender, he said, his voice hollow. Robert nodded to his communications officer. Send word to Earth Command. The last military resistance has ended. The core worlds are secure. He looked out at the stars, thinking about how much had changed. The Zaxian Empire, which had stood for 10,000 years, had fallen in less than 6 months to a species they had dismissed as primitive. Sir, Susan said softly, message from the other alien empires. They're all confirming they will honor the peace treaties. None of them want to risk facing us. They learned from the Zaxians' mistake, Robert replied. Sometimes the youngest can teach the oldest. As human ships began helping the surrendered Zaxian vessels, Robert thought about the cost of pride. How many lives could have been saved if the Zaxians had simply treated humans as equals from the start? Captain, he said to Susan, make sure all prisoners are treated well. We're not here for revenge. We're here to show them a better way. The UES Victory moved through space, its mission finally complete. The last holdouts of the mighty Zaxian Empire had fallen not to superior force, but to superior adaptability. Their pride had cost them their empire, but humanity's mercy would let them survive to learn from their mistakes. The price of pride had been paid. Now it was time for peace. Commander Emily Roberts stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, exactly where this story had begun 6 months ago. But everything was different now. The massive room was filled with representatives from every spacefaring species, all watching as history was made. The Zaxian Emperor walked forward, his once proud shoulders now bent with the weight of defeat. But there was something else in his bearing too. Understanding. He had learned what true strength meant. The final treaty is ready to be signed, announced the council leader. The Galaxy Accords will reshape our civilization forever. Emily remembered that terrible day when she had watched New Eden Colony burn. Now she was here to make sure nothing like that ever happened again. Before we sign, she said, her voice carrying through the hall, I want everyone to understand something. Humanity didn't want this war. We didn't want to prove our strength. All we wanted was to live in peace. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. They all knew what had happened, how the mighty Zaxian Empire had fallen to the species they had dismissed as primitive. The Galaxy Accords are not about punishment, Emily continued. They're about change. About making sure power never again means the right to hurt others. She looked at the document displayed on the floating screen. All species, regardless of age or technology level, have equal rights in galactic society. No empire may attack civilian targets under any circumstances. The Galactic Council must act immediately against any aggressor who breaks these rules. All species must share basic defensive technology to protect against future threats. A new joint fleet will be created, with ships and crews from all species working together. The Zaxian Emperor stepped forward to sign first. His hand trembled slightly as he pressed his palm to the screen. We learned a costly lesson, he said quietly. Age does not equal wisdom. Power does not equal right. Humanity taught us this. One by one, the other species signed. They had all watched as humanity defeated the undefeatable empire, not through blind destruction, but through innovation, determination, and carefully applied force. Emily thought about everyone who had made this possible. John Cooper and his team discovering the shield weakness, Colonel Patterson creating new battle tactics, Brian Murphy and his team proving that victory didn't always need weapons, Lieutenant Hayes showing that justice was better than revenge, and General Hayes leading the final push with minimal casualties. As she stepped forward to sign for humanity, Emily touched the silver pendant her daughter had given her, the same one she had worn on that terrible first day. "Let the galaxy remember this," she said, "not as the day humanity conquered, but as the day we all chose to be better. We could have destroyed the Zaxian Empire completely. Instead, we chose to help them change." The council leader spoke again. "With these signatures, we begin a new age. The Galaxy Accords will ensure peace through cooperation, not fear." After the ceremony, the Zaxian Emperor approached Emily privately. "Commander Roberts," he said, "you were there at the beginning. You saw what our pride and cruelty caused. Why did humanity show us mercy?" Emily smiled sadly. "Because that's the real strength humans have. Not our ability to fight, but our ability to forgive, after justice is served." She looked out at the stars through the Great Hall's window. Somewhere out there, New Eden Colony was being rebuilt. But this time, Zaxian engineers were helping, working alongside humans to make it better than before. "What happens now?" the Emperor asked. "Now we do what humans do best," Emily replied. "We learn from mistakes, we adapt, we improve, and we move forward. Together." As ships from all species departed the council station, their lights painted trails across space. Among them flew human vessels, no longer seen as primitive, but as equals, perhaps even as teachers. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their tactics. It was in their ability to rise above hatred, to choose justice over vengeance, and to offer a hand to their fallen enemies. Emily sent one final message to Earth Command. "The Galaxy Accords are signed. The war is officially over. Let the healing begin." The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if they too knew that a new age had dawned. An age where strength meant wisdom, where power meant responsibility, and where humanity's example would guide the galaxy toward a better future. The galaxy had quivered, but humanity's wrath had remained unyielding, not in destruction, but in the determination to build something better from the ashes of conflict. A new dawn had truly begun.